Likely you have been doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's like Albert Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And as creatives, as music producers, we want to be trying new things, we want to be experimenting, we want to be taking new opportunities and leveling the playing field, right? If you're wanting to achieve new things, you need to be willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, which is maybe getting mentoring, or maybe it's getting help from a friend or another music producer. Getting help doesn't mean that you're less of a music producer. It's actually what's gonna get you from where you are to where you need to be in a faster time, because you can absolutely do everything by yourself, but having a good community around you and having somebody who actually guides you through the steps is what's gonna speed up the entire process. So you really have to decide for yourself, like, what are you gonna do to get where you are to where you need to be? How are you going to get off the island? Because sure, you might fail, like you might drown, but I'd rather drown than not do anything at all and just be walking around the same island over and over again with a bunch of other dickheads. So you might have to ask yourself, like, what exactly are you going to do to get off that island? Because moving forward as a music producer, you have a limited amount of time, and it's not as in like how many years you have left in your life to do this, but like just how I always coin this term, hype isn't how good you are, it's how good people think you are at a short time frame. So what are you going to be doing in a short amount of time to leverage as many opportunities and as much hype as possible to get off that island and to land something huge, so then you can actually have an impact on the industry and you can stay in the industry because you've had that everlasting success from those achievements that you've got. So it doesn't just really come down to getting onto that label and getting some fan base. It's about keeping consistent with those achievements. So you might get lucky and land some things here and there. Like everybody gets lucky here and there as a producer or as a creative, but what you want to do is understand the framework on how to actually land opportunities for yourself. What happens often is that somebody will go to an artist manager, they'll get with their first artist manager they've ever had, they expect that the artist manager is going to land all these opportunities for them, and then they get upset when they realize it's not what they exactly thought it was going to be like. That the artist manager is just really managing the music, they're just sending it off. Maybe some good managers will help you out with the personal branding and maybe some advice on socials and whatnot, but they're not really going to be leveraging too much stuff if you're really just starting out. So the reason why you want to build as much leverage, hype, and resourcefulness by yourself before you get any kind of team members on your side is because that way you have so many more options to work with higher tier people. If you settle for anything right now, it's only going to be low tier shit. Like you're only going to grow when they grow, like this, right? But if you get an artist manager and you hold out for as long as possible for somebody high tier that's already well established in the industry, they're going to take you up to speed to where you are, and then you can grow even further from there. And so as you can imagine, it's going to take way less time to get to where you need to be because you're not going to have any limiting like ceilings here. Like you're going to be with people who are already well established. You're not going to waste any time in terms of finding the right team. A lot of clients that come to me actually have been in the position where they got an artist manager that they thought was good and then ended up realizing that they weren't doing what they needed to actually get them to a higher level. Because once they had became really good at production and they're getting decent shows and whatnot, they realized that the management, that they could actually do a lot better. And then becomes the uncomfortable scenario of having to leave that relationship of being with an artist manager. And it's much like leaving like an actual relationship. It's very uncomfortable. And sometimes you've been with these people for years and having to cut ties with that is never fun, right? We don't want to do that. And so it ends up just being a big waste of your time when it comes to working with somebody who's like an artist manager or booking agent that's just not performing. So it's best bet to actually just hold off for as long as possible and get somebody who is at a high standard, because you can actually land all the good stuff by yourself. Like you can get onto a decent label, you can leverage shows, you can eventually get a booking agent by yourself. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because that's what I exactly did. I was sick of waiting on artist managers to do the thing they were meant to do. And I thought that was going to be how it always was. And I thought, no, I'm not going to settle for that. I'm going to just teach myself everything an artist manager should know and apply it to my own brand. And that's exactly what I did. And so since doing that, I've built multiple online educational platforms showing people how to actually do that. And so if you want to learn how, like, I build these frameworks for people and potentially if if it turns out that you actually are a good fit for Industry Set, then you can apply on the website as well. But if you're wanting to learn more about the frameworks and whatnot, I'm going to still be posting about it on this channel and our socials. But most importantly, if you want more of like a done with you scenario where we actually help you guide through the process and help you leverage deals or get you moving towards management or booking agencies, or maybe even it's like a fix in your production and your sound design, then maybe have a look at Industry Set and we can help you out there. But in terms of where you're currently at right now, if you're building the brand and you've got some uncertainty and you're wanting to know whether you should move towards management or booking agencies or whatnot, you need to make sure that you actually have leverage in the first place. If there's no leverage, then nobody's going to really need another artist on their roster, because you want to provide as much resourcefulness as possible. That like, hey, you're already doing these things by yourself. Imagine what happens if you had management or a booking agency to facilitate even more opportunities, right? So I've got clients that leveraged one deal. Let's say they got onto like a label or it was a 360 deal. And then instead of just settling for that, we leveraged that to then get onto a bigger platform, right? I'm not going to list what specific details those are because they're not fully locked in just yet, some of those deals. But some of my clients are leveraging some of the biggest music labels in the world. I'm talking like huge, right? Like not even like mid-tier, high tier. This is like, the A-list kind of labels. And those deals are incredibly difficult to get on, but without like an actual connection. But through leveraging competition that these labels already have and using that to get a better deal, because a lot of labels, they don't want to miss out on that kind of stuff. We're able to land even bigger opportunities. And it always starts small, Association is so big in terms of like leveraging. And that's the main frameworks I want to teach all my clients to do. It's not to build up somebody and manage them and then, take a commission of what they're doing and then hold on to them for as long as possible. What I enjoy the most with what I do and with what I do with Industry Set is growing somebody up from bedroom all the way to a touring artist level and seeing that transformation happen and being a part of that entire journey, because I get to feel like I'm living those parts of my career all over again. And those were frankly the most exciting parts of my career. Like if I could do it all over again, it would be just that like grind from being in bedroom all the way to a touring artist level. Like that was such a grind, going through so many difficult parts of my life to get to that point. But that grind and seeing it in people and helping them through it and being on the other side and being able to guide them through it, that's why I do what I do. And it's like a dopamine drip for me. I'm like, wow, like every time I get a good win with somebody, they land a certain label opportunity, a booking agency, a management, whatever it might be, that fills my cup up. And that's why I do this. And that's why I built multiple schools, even leading up to Industry Set. I've had multiple before that had thousands of students, but now with Industry Set, I'm just doing one-on-ones, because that's where I can actually provide the most value for people, because it's just me. I don't have anybody else involved when it comes to like the marketing and growing a client. I'm just me being me and trying to think intuitively of how we could actually grow the brand as if it was my own. Leveraging deals can always come at a cost because you might miss out on some other things, but that's why you need to be really strategic about what you're moving towards and what's going to be a better fit. So let's say you wanted to move towards a certain management, right? And you had no affiliation with them. You didn't like, your music's good, your sound design's good, you've got a high volume of tracks. So you're ticking all the boxes here in terms of like management. But the missing thing is that you have no association with them. So, everyone and their uncle is a music producer these days. So it's like, why should an artist manager sign you? Like, what else are you bringing to the table that separates you from the rest? There's two parts of that. It's your personal brand and your sound design, because that's your identity. Like, nobody can take that away from you. Like, if you develop your taste as your sound and you develop your personality further to showcase online, like you actually show that online, that's the two main things there, right? So sound design, anybody could really get good at sound design. If you just watched a bazillion tutorials and implemented, you would get good at it. But the one thing that separates you from the rest is your actual taste there, because you could have the same technical ability as somebody else, but the one thing that would happen is you'd still make a completely different track to the other person, because it's that taste is what's the differentiation here. And with your personal brand, that's just your personality being shown on social media. And I don't mean necessarily just using like fancy cameras and like vintage aesthetics and whatnot with like your filming of content. That doesn't necessarily mean like a personal brand. That's just like an aesthetic. A personal brand is showing your authentic, genuine personality. Like, are you a funny person? Like, you should be showing and talking to the camera like it's your best friend. Like, how do you act when you're around your friends? A lot of people, they withhold that and they try to just be somebody they're not when they're on socials. They try to act a certain way. It might be it's like overly professional, or it's like, they're trying to play somebody that they're not. And people can see through that. It's hard for somebody to connect with you if you're not being your authentic self. And sure, it might take some time to actually find that audience, but that's why being your authentic self is so important, because eventually you will attract that ideal audience that actually likes you for you. And that way you can authentically be yourself as opposed to trying to be somebody you're not. It's just like friends in real life. If you're pretending to be somebody you're not, those people are going to like that fake persona that you're being, right? And then how uncomfortable that's going to be, that for the rest of your life you have to be that person so then people like you. So it's the same thing with social media. You want to be your authentic self so then you can just be yourself. You imagine how much easier it is to just show up on camera and just be your weird self, right? Obviously, it's case by case scenario, because if you're trying to talk about a serious matter, you can't be like making jokes left and right. I don't mean like that. I just mean, if you're getting on camera and you're talking about, your music or your life stuff, be yourself and like inject your personality in it, because that's what's going to separate yourself. So that's like the main first thing that is going to separate yourself from other people when it comes to like what an artist manager looks for. Next thing an artist manager is going to be looking for is some kind of like association. Like, they won't directly be looking for it, but it's like part of the thing that actually wins them over. Because if, let's say, an artist manager is looking for new talent, right? And they ask all the people on their roster currently, like, who's the next person they should look out for, right? And let's say they all mentioned your name, right? The artist manager is then going to be like, oh, okay, who's this person? Like, everybody knows about, that's interesting. Because like I always say, it's not how good you are, it's how good people think you are at a short time frame. That's what hype is. So if your name's coming up a lot in their office, that's what's actually like creating leverage for you. It's creating hype, right? Because there's some association going. If all these people that are already well established know of you and approve of you, and they're saying it to the person who's like looking for that exact person, voila, surprise, surprise, that artist manager's likely going to hit you up, because that's exactly what happened to me. And that's exactly what I do with my clients, is like build that association up. And once you have that association, you can land and leverage pretty much any kind of deal you want to, as long as you put your best foot forward and move towards that thing that you want to go towards. You can't expect to be like manifesting stuff from your couch. Like, you need to actually have a plan of being like, okay, I want to move towards this certain booking agent, and I want to win over as many people that are associated with like the artist managers that work with those people, or the booking agents, or the people who work in the office who are like the HR or A&Rs or whatever it might be. You need to win over as many people as possible, because that's all associated. It's all association. So if you're ready to go on a path of success on your own terms through some guidance from experts that have been doing it for decades, so you can have that reassurance, that guidance, that certainty for the first time that every next step you make is the right one, then you belong with Industry Set. Let's build a future together where there's no gatekeeping, there's no manipulation, and we can land whatever opportunity we want, so then our music speaks for itself.